Today's episode is brought to you by LaRosse Media. They make professional videos to fit any budget, so next time you need a commercial, promo, or corporate video, think LaRosse. Check them out at larossemedia.com. Hello and welcome to the Stinking Albatross Podcast. My name is Alissa Globe and I'm here with my partner in crime, Scott Hayward. How's it going, Scott?
Great, Alyssa. Welcome back to work. By the way, for people who don't know, the other day as of this recording, this week is Alyssa's first week back after maternity leave. So how does it feel to be back in the swing of things?
Well, I do have an announcement. I'm pregnant. Just kidding. It feels pretty good. Yeah, just like normal. Nothing like out of the ordinary right now. It's kind of weird to start in the summer. Well, I guess there is the provincial election, which we'll talk about. But other than that, like, there's no elections going on, leadership races. No one's sitting in any legislatures. So it's a good time to regroup.
Do you know what is happening? Is that the Toronto Maple Leafs, after almost 2 full decades, are now in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
They are, yes. It's funny because, like, I feel like a lot of Leafs fans will be able to, this will resonate with them because in the first round, I was so stressed and so nervous and then just so overjoyed when they won. Like, I literally had tears in my eyes. I had been drinking, I'm not going to lie. And now that it's the second round, like, I really hope that they win, but I don't feel nearly as stressed.
Yeah.
Because I'm like...
I feel like for most Leafs fans, getting past the first round was like the Stanley Cup for them.
It was. And I really do think that... I hope and I think that they're the better team when I watch them with the Panthers. So we'll see what happens. But it would be really cool to see an Edmonton Leafs showdown for the Stanley Cup Finals. But at the very least, it would be great if a Canadian team won.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people are pretty high on that. I mean, I don't think my predictions were super accurate from when we last got together, but that would be pretty cool if it would be Edmonton and Toronto. But I don't know. I just feel like Florida's on this high since taking out Boston and coming back from that series from 3-1. Yeah. And Seattle.
I know. I guess Seattle would win. And you were like, what? Then I told Aaron later on and he's like, no. But they were just doing so well right off the bat that, those 2 rounds are just crazy. It's a really weird playoffs.
Well, you could be, I know lots of people like to make fun of the Toronto Maple Leafs for not getting past the first round for so many years, but a lot of people that don't follow the NHL super closely won't know that the Minnesota Wild, for the last 8 years in a row, have failed like consecutively in a row have failed to make it past the first round. Which is just insane to think of.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, yeah. Good old hockey. Rip to the Jets, by the way. How was your weekend?
I mean, it was good. I watched, speaking of the Jets, I watched like the garbage bag day interviews and stuff like that. So a lot of my weekend was with that, but just, kind of regular weekend. We're getting ready for the baby. So my wife's birthday's in 2 days as of this recording, which also happens to be the due date for our second kid. So that's, we're joining you guys in the 2 under 2 club. But I don't know. I don't think that she's going to give birth until early sometime next week. It just doesn't seem as close like it did last time. Like, a lot of the signs aren't there. So we're really hoping that it doesn't happen after this weekend. And the weather's actually been pretty good here. And it's going to turn starting tomorrow for the better. Kind of get like to 15 degrees and never look back type thing. So I would like to open up the yard and move the barbecue from the garage to the backyard and all that type of stuff. And that'd be great to do all that before the second baby comes. So yeah.
Well, let's get into it then. Our first topic, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to talk about the Alberta provincial election because the writ was officially dropped on Monday, so my very first day back at work. The election day will be May 29th, and it's a close race insofar as the polls are concerned. And just from my general, driving around synopsis, it's weird because I live in the Calgary Foothills riding, but I'm close to Bennington and other ridings that are very close and considered swing ridings. And there are a lot of NDP signs. And I know that we should never trust just purely based on signs, but I see a ton of NDP signs everywhere. So we'll see if that makes an impact at all. But basically 338 Canada is predicting 48 seats for the UCP and 39 for the NDP. And that to me makes more sense. That seems to me to be closer than what polls are saying, like neck and neck, potentially not even a majority. But yeah, we'll see what happens. What are your predictions and what are you thinking based on the numbers so far?
Yeah, well, I want to put together some of the numbers here. So in the 2019 election campaign in Alberta provincially, so that'd be 4 years ago when Jason Kenney united the Progressive Conservative Party of Alberta and the Wild Rose Party of Alberta together for the United Conservative Party of Alberta. They won 54% of the vote, so just over 1 million votes, and 63 seats. So if you consider putting the vote numbers together for the PCs and the Wild Rose in the 2015 election campaign and their seats, that was an increase from 52% and 30 seats. So they got 2% more, but they more than doubled the seats because that's the way that first past the post works. The interesting thing with the NDP is last time in 2019, they got unelected with 32%, which is still pretty high for an opposition party. Whether federally or provincially in Canada, 32% is a pretty high floor, if that's to be considered their floor, and 24 seats. In the 2015 campaign, they got 41%. That's the NDP with 54 seats. Now, what's interesting is, like you said, 338 Canada, which is a polling aggregator, so they don't do their own polls. They aggregate the polls and they have their own methodology, and they're pretty, not far off the mark for the most part. They're predicting 48% for the UCP and 44% for the NDP. So like you said, Alissa, a 48-39 vote split. However, there are 14, so they'll have safe NDP, likely NDP, leaning NDP, toss-up slightly to the NDP, toss-up slightly to UCP, leaning UCP, likely UCP, safe UCP. So of the 87 provincial ridings in Alberta, 338 has 14 of the 87 categorized as toss-up. So basically it's too close to call, but one slightly favors the other. So out of the 14 toss-up seats, 8 are for the NDP and 6 are for the UCP. So the safest of those NDP toss-up seats is Calgary-Glenmore, and that's a margin of 3%. So that's super, super tight. You're talking about margin of error, right? And of the 6 toss-up UCP seats, the safest one for them is Lethbridge East at 4%. So you have 14 toss-up seats that are less than 5%. If you look at most studies from like the United States or Australia or the United Kingdom, when it comes to get out the vote for GOTV efforts, if you have an absolute local bang-on GOTV effort where you have hundreds of people that are doing all the right things leading up to advanced poll days, during the advanced polls, and on election day, that could give you at most about a 5% boost. And so a 5% might not sound like a lot, but you have 14 seats here that are within a 5%, less than a 5% margin. This is all going to come out to GOTV. This is all going to come down to who is more motivated, or potentially in this election campaign, who is less not motivated, if that makes any sense. And I think this is the danger for the UCP as the election campaign goes on, because I don't think there's any issue that Danielle Smith and the UCP can bring up that's going to demotivate NDP supporters to stay home and to not vote. However, there are a few issues that the NDP could bring up, and I know we're only day 2 of the campaign as of this recording, or day 3, I guess, technically, but I haven't seen them do it yet. But there are a few issues I think the NDP can bring up that the way that Danielle Smith would probably respond to them would not motivate her supporters, the party supporters, to come out and vote, and that could be a really big difference. And a lot of those seats, like I said, that the safest of those toss-up NDP seats is in Calgary. A lot of them are in Calgary. But there are some kind of outside of Calgary, outside of Edmonton, urban seats that the UCP currently have that they might not hold. And that Lethbridge East is an interesting one to me because I believe it's one of the 4 UCP MLAs that voted at committee against Dan Williams' conscious rights.
I think that's Nate Newdorf.
Nate Newdorf, thank you. Nate Newdorf, yeah. And then Nixon in Calgary Klein is actually, that's not a toss-up right now. I think that one is classified as leaning NDP. So there's some interesting numbers right there. It's a very, very tight race, and I think it's going to come down to who can motivate their base to get out more.
Yeah, all you hear on the radio right now is that one clip of Danielle Smith saying, if you have to pay out of pocket to go to a doctor, is it really the worst thing? Or whatever she said about potentially privatizing certain types of healthcare. But they just have that one line. But I think the arena deal might be a good thing for Danielle Smith. I know that's, they talk about how it's controversial, but I've only seen good things and heard good things about it. So I think the difference between the last deal and this deal is that the last deal was purely just an arena, whereas this deal, it's like a bunch of developments that are going into it that I think people will appreciate, not just people who go to concerts or hockey games or whatever. So I'm wondering if that'll make a difference. But my husband was certainly very happy about it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they just need to find a coach now.
Yeah.
I know what, like,
sure.
what are you feeling on the ground? Like, obviously you're friends with MLAs and you're in contact with MLAs from Calgary and you're friends with people on various campaigns. Have you, I know it's early going, but have you heard anything? What's the result from door knocking? What are they saying?
Yeah, I haven't gone door knocking yet. I have reached out and I will be going next week. So that'll be interesting. The NDP person did come around to my riding. The UCP person has not, which is interesting to me as well. I think that it's not going to be easy for the UCP in a lot of these Calgary swing ridings. Like I said, they already have their signs out there, have their door knockers out. So if that's any indication. And I think sometimes incumbents can get lazy and they think that, they don't have to work as hard because they're incumbents and people will vote for them just like they voted for them last election, when that's not the case. There's a new leader. There's a lot of new things that happened since the last election. So I'll go door knocking next week and I'll report back and tell you kind of what I'm hearing at the door. We'll see what happens. I definitely don't feel confident. When I first moved here, I literally thought like a groundhog could be the leader of the UCP and they would still win, but now I'm not so sure.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that's such a huge shift? Because if you look at a lot of the polls right now in the Calgary ridings in particular, it's a massive, massive swing to the NDP. And that's not going to go away within a 30-day campaign unless some sort of huge story comes out about Rachel Notley. But I don't see that happening with Rachel Notley. She, despite, her horrendous politics, she seems like a pretty squeaky clean person, like as a person, and seems generally likable by most Albertans. To me, she kind of reminds me of Justin Trudeau that way. Justin Trudeau, I despise his politics so much that he's just not like a likable person to me. But here in Ontario, there's a lot of people that want to like him. Like there are a lot of people here in Ontario that want to like Doug Ford. And I think Rachel Notley has that a little bit in Alberta, particularly in more central parts of Calgary, as opposed to more of the ends of Calgary. Like your provincial riding, you're going to be more toward the edge of Calgary, right? Even though you're in the north. So like, so more like was a Calgary, Buffalo's already NDP, I think, but Calgary, Bow and Klein and was it Beddington? Like more toward that. Like there's a huge swing of like 20, 25, 30%. Like, why do you think that is?
Well, I think Danielle Smith has a reputation here, right? Like, it's not like we have a new leader. We have someone who was the leader of the Wild Rose, so that comes with a certain reputation for a lot of people. And then she just outside of the conservative, and then in the floor crossing with conservatives. So I'm not sure if like her baggage has anything to do with it. And if we had a new fresh leader, if that would have made a difference. But yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you, but I do think that it is a more conservative province. So I really couldn't see at this point, where the majority or even enough swing left that the NDP wins. But like, this is by far the closest I've ever seen, an election polls be so far. So we'll see what happens. Polls could be very wrong, but we'll see what happens in the debates. We'll see what happens over the next, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, I guess. And I'll tell you what I hear at the door too, because that'll be a good indicator as well.
It's interesting. You look at those 14 toss-up ridings that are within less than 5% margin, and the NDP have 8 of them. The UCP have 6, which is good for the UCP. That a higher percentage of the 48 seats that 338 is projecting that they'll win are safer than toss-ups. But if the NDP win those 6 toss-up seats, that means that the UCP goes from 48 down to 42, and the NDP go from 39 to 45. So I think the UCP could win 48 to 39. Like, I think that's possible. I think it would only be by a few thousand votes spread out through like those kind of 10, 12, 14, 15 ridings. But I think at most the NDP would only win like 45, 46 seats. But hey, that's what matters. You just need 44 plus 1, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they might get it with those 6 toss-up UCP. So yeah, it will be interesting. We'll have to talk about it as the campaign goes along here.
Absolutely.
We live in a world that grows through communication.
Every connection comes from a dream to be heard and realized.
To welcome a better future. What are your dreams?
LaRosse Media will help communicate your vision through our professional video production services and marketing strategies.
Start building connections to your future audience. Visit larossemedia.com
and be sure to check out our extended service options.
Dream, produce, market, succeed with LaRosse Media.
Serving Canada from coast to coast to coast.
Another big issue that's amongst pro-lifers and in the news somewhat is the Bill C-311, which is Kathy Wagenthal's bill, a new bill that's been brought forward. It's called the Violence Against Pregnant Women Act, similar to Cassie Amali's law, a previous bill that she put forward that basically would add 2 new aggravating factors to the criminal code when someone knowingly assaults a pregnant woman and causes physical or emotional harm to that pregnant woman. So the first hour of this bill was put forward at the end of January, like right at the end, and the first hour of debate will be on Tuesday, May 9th, coming up. And so Kathy is urging everyone to contact their MP, obviously, and encourage them to vote in favor of this bill, but also to sign a petition so she can have a large number of petitions to put forward in the House of Commons as well. But yeah, this is an interesting bill just because it's been brought forward and discussed quite a bit in the last 10 years. There have been multiple versions of this bill. So there's been the Unborn Victims of Crime Act. There's been Cassie Amali's law. There was Roxanne's law. And now there's this Violence Against Pregnant Women Act. And the one thing that sort of stuck out to me, and it'll be interesting to see what happens at the actual vote, is that Pierre, as long as he's been in Parliament, has voted in favor of every single one of those bills. So I wonder if that's going to change, his stances has changed, or what's your thinking on that?
I don't think it's going to change. I think he's going to vote in favor of the legislation. I know that when her bill was introduced in the House of Commons, for first reading, that the Office of Leader of the Opposition, so that'd be Pierre Poilievre's office, issued a statement basically supporting it, talking to certain people, and that's not the MP that is putting forward this bill. That's not Kathy.
Yeah.
But talking to certain staffers on the Hill, I was told that the bill would have been stronger. Yeah, so I'm happy that the bill is there regardless. It's a good piece of legislation. Yeah, I don't see him voting against it. I think there's probably, I would suspect within caucus, that's the Conservative caucus, I would suspect and hope that most, if not all, members of the caucus will vote in favor of the legislation. When it came forward under Ken Epp, who's a former member of parliament for what's now Garna Genesis riding, back in 2008, it actually passed second reading. It had a majority in the House of Commons, and it passed second reading. It was going to go to committee. Now, Parliament was dissolved, and there was an election campaign, and so the bill died, and it wasn't reintroduced in that second Parliament from 2008 to 2011. But like you say, Cassie Molly's Law, Kathleen Wagenthal, a new member of Parliament elected in 2015, she introduced that piece of legislation in 2016, and in that Parliament, that bill had 76 that voted in favor, 209 that voted against, including 3 Conservative members of Parliament. Would have been Sylvie Boucher, who got defeated. It would have included Peter Kent, who was replaced by Melissa Lanceman, and Michael Chong, who's still there. And I had some people who were present in the House but did not vote for it, including people like Michelle Rempel. So hopefully, like if you look at Kathy Wingtall's other wonderful piece of legislation in the last Parliament, being the one that Pierre did vote against, which was a ban on sex-selective abortion, that one had 80 Conservative members of Parliament vote in favor of it. So hopefully this gets more than 76 votes. Hopefully it's pretty much the entirety of the Conservative caucus. Hopefully it's close to 120. And I don't know what you think, but I don't see Pierre voting against this piece of legislation, assuming that he's in the House that day.
Yeah, and I guess like the Liberal MPs are already coming out saying that I guess Rachel Bendayan, she said in a French interview that it's just another way to open the abortion through the back door again. And then Pam Damoff, of course, also tweeted that the CPC continue to push to restrict women's rights and access to abortion. MP Kathy Wagenthal introduced a private members bill with a petition and support from anti-abortion groups. Canadian women have the right to choose and will not let you turn back the clock. So they're already obviously making this into an abortion issue. Of course, pro-life groups are behind this bill, but it's not a specifically anti-abortion piece of legislation and more protects pregnant women. But it kind of speaks to me, and you mentioned this earlier, that it probably would have been stronger if there wasn't pressures probably from OLO and the leader. But, you know, they've done this bill, what is it, the 4th or 5th time, and every single time, you know, these politicians put forward bills that are that kind of circle around the abortion issue but don't directly talk about it, they make it into an abortion issue anyway. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think that the next piece of legislation, pro-life legislation, has to specifically deal with abortion. It has to specifically deal with restricting abortion in some way, whether it's a pain-capable bill or restricting late-term abortion or something. Like we're not really having an abortion debate with this type of legislation. They're saying it's about abortion. We're saying it's about violence against women. And you're sort of circling, or you're talking around each other. Mm-hmm. Like, let's actually have an abortion. And even with Stephen Woodworth's bill, when human life begins, it was still like, we're not trying to restrict abortion. We're just trying to see, like, okay, you know, we're just trying to determine when life begins. But like everybody sees through that. And I feel like a lot of politicians feel like they're being crafty or sneaky, or not even sneaky, but they're being, you know, creative in trying to bring up this issue. Like, just bring it up. Like, honestly, just bring it up straight. It would be way more effective to talk about when a fetus can feel pain or late-term abortion, because we know the polls, we know the stats on that, and it is specifically about abortion. It does happen in Canada, and if they're just going to use these same talking points anyway, like, let's attack them, because they're so lame and they're so old and they're so outdated that it's easy to attack. So that's sort of my 2 cents with where we should be going with legislation. I understand that there's a lot of things that these MPs that are out of their power, and I'm not at all criticizing or blaming Kathy Wagenthal. It's amazing that she keeps bringing forward different pieces of legislation where we can talk about what happens against pregnant women and their children. But when it comes to specific pro-life legislation, I definitely like to see something more direct.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. And I think this is a perfect example as to why the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau has not legislated on abortion, because as many of our viewers and listeners know, there is no law on abortion in Canada. One of only 2 countries in the world where that's the case, the other being North Korea. So the law is silent. Abortion is neither legal or illegal. It's a vacuum. And of course, the Morgentaler decision in 1988, that was 5-2. Those 5 justices that voted to strike down the abortion law that existed that Pierre Trudeau had introduced in 1968, said so that, Parliament, you need to come up with some sort of legislation regulating abortion. It just has to apply evenly across the country, which was not the case under Pierre Trudeau because of the therapeutic abortion committees that would happen in hospitals. You had a committee of 3 physicians that would say yay or nay. Some of those therapeutic abortion committees were basically rubber stamps, like in hospitals in downtown Toronto and downtown Montreal. And then the entire province of Prince Edward Island, not one single hospital had a therapeutic abortion committee because they refused. So obviously the law is not applied evenly. So, the reason why the Liberals haven't brought this up and actually legislated what the current situation is, which is you can have an abortion for any reason at any time up to 9 months during the pregnancy in Canada, so as long as you can find an abortionist that's willing to do it, is because if you actually introduce that legislation, that's when the rubber meets the road, and that's when the Liberals know that the majority is not with them. In fact, it's a very small minority. A lot of pro-abortion or just dim-witted professional conservatives that work for the Conservative Party of Canada and are full-time staffers in the OLO will love to say like, oh, well, if you look at every poll, like 75% Canadians say they're pro-choice. That might be true, but they're pro-choice with exceptions. They're not pro-choice like Justin Trudeau is pro-choice, which is pro-abortion. They're not pro-choice for abortion all the way up to any reason whatsoever for 9 months of pregnancy. A lot of them, the vast majority of them, they get off at the station of late-term abortion or sex-selective abortion or pain capability abortion, or even beyond that. Like, a lot of people say that they're pro-choice only for the life of the mother or sexual assault. You're talking like less than 5% of abortions at that point. You're basically you're 95% pro-life when it comes to abortion at that point. So that's why I agree with you, Alissa. I think that they should bring something up. And that's why, like, the sex-selective abortion bill, it was good. It was a good first start. Mm-hmm. It's a popular policy. There are other countries in the world where they actually do have this and they enact it and they police it. It's not the easiest to police. And we're not talking about a huge amount of abortions, but it's somewhere to get started. But I think if they have a late-term ban or especially a pain capability ban, I think that would be super, super popular. But those pro-life members of parliament, those pro-life staffers in Ottawa, you need to plan that out. Right, you actually have to have a plan. You actually have to speak out. You actually have to do media. You actually have to be professional about it. And I think that's something that's maybe missing from our pro-life friends on Parliament Hill for the last couple of years.
Well, we'll continue to work with them and try and hash out something there. But I mean, this is definitely a good piece of legislation, and we'll be following it, and we'll be posting about it. We'll live tweet the debate. I'm sure it'll be infuriating, but hopefully there's some good speakers in favor of the bill. And we'll keep you posted on as to when it's getting voted on and what happens when it comes to Bill C-311. So thank you, Kathy, for bringing forward that.
Nature communicates with us in a universal language. The sunrise starts a new day. The sunset marks our accomplishments.
The most beautiful communication is where the speaker and the listener match perfectly and understand the same message.
Your future audience is waiting to hear from you. What message do you need to share?
At LaRosse Media, we fashion beautiful communications through our professional video production services and marketing strategies.
Create your own most beautiful message. Visit larosmedia.com and be sure to check out our extended service options.
Dream, produce, market, succeed with LaRosse Media.
Serving Canada from coast to coast to coast.
Okay, so our final topic is about the YWCA in Regina. So they announced that Faye Johnstone, who is a biological male, a transgendered female, would be giving a keynote speech at its Women of Distinction Awards. So then the Women's Right Network of Canada tweeted, "What are you thinking, YWCA Regina? Are you not aware that women have had enough of these males identifying as women taking our awards, spaces, and opportunities?" So then the YWCA in Calgary got involved and said that it stood firmly in solidarity. Faye has been tweeting about, how they're getting attacked online, and there's a Rebel petition going around, and that Rebel's using Faye's dead name and all these things. So it's, something that's happening in Canada currently, but this issue is becoming more and more in the public eye, more relevant all across North America. And I think this is just the beginning. When I was doing a little bit of research about this, I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but there was a rape shelter in Vancouver a few years ago. I think it was in 2019. And they refused to allow biological males to use the shelter. It was purely for biological females. And so it was constantly being harassed. There were dead rats that were being hung on the door. There was graffiti that said "kill TERFs," and trans power and F TERFs and all this stuff. And I find that got very little public. It wasn't in the news too much. And then the Vancouver rape, the city of Vancouver withdrew more than $30,000 in funding because of that specific policy. I think the more that these things happen and the more that these situations, positions, opportunities are taken away from biological women by biological men, I'm hoping more groups like the Women's Right Network and others will speak up and start defending, true women's rights.
Yeah, I hope that organizations like Women's Right Network Canada, which I believe they're part of an international organization that, from the looks of it, was started in the United Kingdom just last year or a couple of years ago. I hope that they keep putting pressure on publicly. I hope they keep building up the profile in Canada, but I also hope they start putting on the pressure politically as well. This as much as we like to discuss things in the culture, and I know I constantly do this on this podcast, but I love to bring things back to the realm of politics because that's how you can really move the dial culturally one way or the other. And I'm waiting for the first federal or provincial politician to actually get up and say something publicly against this stuff, because I think the people in Canada are just waiting for something like this. I mean, you look at, and I understand we're not the same. Our two countries are not the same, but the similarities are very, very, very close. You look in the United States and Bud Light, that whole horrendous campaign of Dylan Mulvaney. Since that campaign started, a month ago, if that, the first week their sales went down by 6%, and then it went down by 17%, then 21%, and now 26%. A quarter of your business gone in 4 to 6 weeks, just like that, right? It's now becoming an old motto, but go woke, go broke.
Woke, go broke.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening. And so we're seeing in the United States, for example, different states doing what the Conservatives did in the United Kingdom. Say what you want about the Conservative Party of the United Kingdom, and there's lots you can say about it, but they actually passed legislation a couple of years ago where it's illegal to have sex reassignment surgery or hormone therapy for minors in the United Kingdom. You have multiple states that are doing that. So there's a movement that's happening in the Anglosphere, and once again, Canadian, and it doesn't have to be conservatives. I don't care if it's someone from the Conservative Party or someone from the Liberal Party or whatever, but there has to be a politician, and I know Maxime Bernier is talking about this, whatever, but I'm talking about someone who can actually get elected and stay elected. I'm talking about an actual politician who is an elected official in the House of Commons or one of our provincial legislatures finally get up and talk about this and talk about it from a calm, cool, collective perspective, which I think is super easy to do. You see what's happening in Ontario with the parents going to the various school boards and not wanting the new trans/pride flag being flown. Like I've never heard of parents going to school boards, because like for 10 plus years now here in Ontario, they've had the pride flag fly on the flag staffs of the different schools. I'm not saying I agree with it, but like it's been here for a while, and now people are starting to really get up in arms about it. And it's interesting because you watch these videos, it's not just white Christian male fathers or white Christian male mothers that are there, and they are there, but there are a lot of people who are not white, who come from different types of Christian backgrounds or not Christian backgrounds. They are protesting, they are getting angry at these hardcore leftist, culturally Marxist school board trustees in Ontario. So I'm just waiting for that federal or provincial politician to pick up the baton and run with it.
The craziest thing, too, is I don't know if you saw that article in the True North, but they had an outline of all these Quebec media personalities that have been speaking out about Drag Queen Story Hour for kids, like actual mainstream media Quebec personalities. So there's one named Denise Bombardier. She said that she feels uneasy about kids being exposed to drag queens. She said that the latter are a character in an adult show where sauciness and sexual transgressions are appreciated. There was another radio host and former municipal politician Luke Ferrandez, who said, "I don't really agree with drag queens in schools amid there being a lack of parental choice." And it goes on and on. Like, the article is full of quotes like that, which was just very shocking to me that it would start in Quebec. But I mean, it's got to start somewhere. And if it starts in Quebec, fine. Hopefully other provinces will follow suit. But I mean, it seems like it's so straightforward and it would be so easy for people to reasonably speak out against this. It's bizarre to me that they're not.
Yeah, I'm just checking something out here because I know that the Quebec Conservateur Party, so the Conservative Party of Quebec, had recently come out hard against Drag Queen Story Hour time. And I know that so the last poll, so that's PQ. The last poll they were below 10% for a little while, and now they're back up above 10%. The CAQ is down quite a bit. Their last poll they were at 40%. Now they're back down to around 35%. And I know in the Quebec City region that the Parti Québécois is ahead of the Coalition Avenue de Québec because the conservateurs, the Parti Conservateur in the Quebec City region, is basically pulling neck and neck with the CAQ, with the CAQ, because they're taking half their vote because they're starting to speak out against this. And so the thing about the Quebec Conservatives is they were polling so high a few months before the provincial election campaign in Quebec in the autumn of 2022 because they were hard against the COVID-19 lockdown and vaccine mandates. And had that election occurred in the spring, like 6 months earlier, they probably would have won 3, 4, maybe 5 seats. But this is an issue that has now kind of revived the party a little bit. And Eric Duhaime was recently speaking at the Canada Strong and Free Network as well. He's become a bit of a folk hero amongst the Conservatives in Quebec and a little bit outside of Quebec as well. So, Alissa, if you have a party that's starting to take on the governing party, if you have a party that has no seats and hasn't had seats since the 1920s in the National Assembly of Quebec, that's now polling in certain regions at the same rate as the governing party that just won a super majority with like 90 plus out of the 125 seats in the National Assembly, obviously that's a salient issue. Obviously that's an issue that you can sink your teeth into. And so I don't know why like the Doug Ford Conservatives and the Danielle Smith Conservatives and the Scott Moe, I know Saskatchewan Party aren't Conservatives, but the Saskatchewan Party, why they aren't talking out against this big issue that's happening in these provinces, or for that matter, the Federal Conservative Party of Canada. For the upcoming convention for the Conservative Party of Canada, there is a policy proposal out of British Columbia. And I was told that it's so far the most popularly voted for in one of the regional meetings policy coming out of British Columbia, which is that a Conservative government will legislate or amend the criminal code to make it illegal for sex reassignment surgeries and hormone therapies to be administered to minors in Canada. And like, this does not say something to you people, right? Like, by people, I mean like the professional conservatives that work for these federal and provincial parties. Because if they're going to miss the boat on it, that's a huge opportunity for Maxime Bernier and the PPC to run with it and go with it. Or like we were talking earlier, you know, you have six seats in the toss-up category for 338 Canada in the province of Alberta that have a margin of 4% or less for the UCP. And if, you know, the NDP under Rachel Notley bring up an issue like this and Daniel Smith says nothing about it, or worse, like she did at the Canada Strong and Free Network, embrace the idea of Drag Queen Storytime Hour at, you know, your local public library or something like that, that could be quite disastrous for the party in the election campaign. So...
And she's done it before. This happened last time she was running.
2012.
So she blew it in the final weeks. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, because there is no other Conservative Party to fall back on. What's weird is that my husband and I, it was our third anniversary yesterday, and
went to a drag queen show?
I felt like it because we went to a steakhouse to watch the first Leafs game. I know it was so romantic. And one of the commercials was of Molson Canadian, and they were talking about how this person's Canadian, this person's Canadian, whether you're a king or a queen, and they had a whole thing about drag queens in there. And I'm like, have you learned nothing? Have you learned nothing from Bud Light? But gotta leave it to Molson Canadian. So hopefully. I don't drink those beers, so
yeah, exactly.
Those sales
it's
do increase either.
It's just crap water anyway. That's why we gotta start brewing our own beer, right, Alissa?
Exactly. Speaking of beer and speaking of drinks, this leads us to our final segment. Summer's coming. It's hot. It's like 20. It was 27 today in Calgary, which is
send some of that our
super
way.
Hot. Yeah, very hot. We literally have the AC on right now. My husband cannot handle the heat, which is really funny. But we are about to. We're breaking out our barbecues. We're buying new barbecues if you're like us, because our old one broke.
Gotta get the charcoal.
Oh, no way. So much work.
So no, I will come. I will fly out there. I will teach you. I'll show you how easy it is.
So we will count down our top 10 favorite summer drinks.
Okay.
Da, 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 da.
You start.
My number 10 is mimosas. And I know it's not like particularly summery, but there's nothing like a good mimosa. It's like the one time where you can drink in the morning and it's socially acceptable. So I have to have it on my list.
Mimosas for brunch. We had mimosas the day after Easter.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there you are.
Spring.
Number 10 for me are Negronis.
Okay.
Yeah, my former roommate got me into them. They're not like my absolute favorite drink, but yeah, like a few times a year at least, I definitely enjoy a good Negroni.
What makes it summery?
I think it's the Campari. So it's gin Campari and dry vermouth, a third. And yeah, it just kind of has that light, sweet taste without being overly sweet.
Just like me.
Sure.
All right, number 9. I mean, are these supposed to be alcoholic as well? I didn't.
I mean, mine all are. I don't know about yours.
Okay, some of mine aren't. And my number 9 are slushies.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can put booze, any type of booze in there. But when I'm pregnant, oh my goodness, I want to down every slushie on earth. So it's not good. I have to keep away from them, but it's just so refreshing. So good. So I love slushies.
Yeah, I visited you in Calgary when you were pregnant, I think both times. And if I recall, both times there were a lot of big gulp containers everywhere.
That's different though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's my number. Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Oh, okay. We'll save that. Yeah. My number 9 is a Paloma, which is tequila. I think you can use gin, but it's tequila and grapefruit.
That sounds absolutely disgusting. I would never drink that in a million years.
I don't know. Have a few Negronis and then you can have one.
Yeah, have a few mimosas. All right, cool. My number 8 is our Radlers.
Okay. Yeah. Any particular one?
I don't know the name. There's one where it's like an orange and yellow checkered label. It's pretty popular. I think it's like a grapefruit one. But it's
You just said grapefruit was disgusting.
Yeah, but grapefruit with tequila. That sounds disgusting. That sounds terrible. I don't know. It just sounds gross to me.
What are we? Number 8?
Yeah.
Just a classic gin and tonic, supersonic. Just sit in just sit in the backyard on ice and just let it sit there. Let the sun come in, listen to the country music, and just sip away.
Okay, my number 7 is any can of white wine. And I love what I do.
Can?
Yes. Listen.
Oh, okay.
When I go to the beach, we stop at the liquor store first, and you get all the cans so you can put them in your cooler.
Right.
And they're little and thin. Like, they're not like big, noticeable.
Are these like
cans.
Skinny Girl can wines?
No, they're like fancy.
Fancy.
They're fancy cans. Yeah. But they don't look like you're drinking, and they fit nicely in a cooler. And you just break it open on the beach, and it's so refreshing. I love it. It's my favorite thing to drink on the beach. Yeah.
Hey.
But you're not gonna like bring a bottle of wine and like pour it. It's like a nice, crisp, cool can.
I guess even if you could bring a bottle, that kind of makes more sense too, right?
Yeah.
Just have like a nice little Chardonnay or a Sauvignon Blanc or whatever.
Pinot.
Okay. Pinot. Okay, number 7 for me is very similar to number 8. It's just bumped up a little bit if I have a little bit extra time, and that's a Tom Collins.
Oh, my mom's favorite. She is not a drinker. She's never been a drinker. But when my brother, who used to be a bartender, makes Tom Collins, he makes them when we get together, but mostly at Christmas. She laughs a lot. Even just after one, she absolutely loves them. And he makes a mean Tom Collins if you're ever around. But yeah, those are good.
All right. Number 6.
Aaron and I, we love drinking strawberry daiquiris. He loves.
I was wondering when that was going to come up.
All female sweet drinks. He hates beer and anything manly, drink wise. So yeah, he's all about those strawberry daiquiris, and I like them too. And I'll make them on occasion on like a Sunday after church or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. I like that one. Mm-hmm. Number 6 for me is pretty simple. Just a nice cold IPA. Nothing crazy, nothing like super fruity or whatever. If I want juice, I'll drink juice. I don't want juice. I just want something with lots of hops. So just a nice IPA, a little bit of citrus, whatever, that's fine, but nothing crazy.
Cool. My number 5 is your number, whatever. It's a gin and tonic.
Okay.
I do like me a G&T. So.
Do you have a particular brand of gin that you swear by?
The cheapest one. It's disgusting, but no, not really. Do you?
Depends. Right? It depends what I'm trying to make, but not really. Usually it's just a typical London dry, so like a Bombay or Tank or something like that.
Yeah.
Number 5 for me, this is weird because I'm not a huge like Coke fan. But number 4 and number 5 is at a specific restaurant back home in Brandon called I don't know, are we allowed to talk about private businesses on this podcast or not? I'm just gonna say it's
yeah, they'll sponsor us.
Yeah, Sabor Latino. And it's 2 Colombians that came to Brandon years ago, and it's a Latin American fusion restaurant. And the food is really, really good to start with, but the cocktails are even better. And so I'm not a huge like Coke fan. Like I have like half a can of Coke a year type thing. But the Cuba Libres there, sign me up.
I have no idea what that is.
It's basically just Coke, dark rum, and lime, fresh lime.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
I would like that. My number 4 is a nice pint of patio beer.
There you go.
A nice pint of patio beer. I like Blue Moon, Belgian white with the orange slice.
Yep.
That's my go-to. Yep.
That's a good one for the summer. Number 4, again, at Sabor Latino. Again, like, not really much for sweets, but their pina colada. I think I crushed 3 of them last time I was there.
I've never liked pina colada.
Yeah. Usually I don't, but I just love theirs. So, yeah.
All right.
They're a lot of work to make.
Yeah. Yeah. My number 3 is sangria, and I'll never forget the sangria I had in Spain.
Oh yeah, I forgot you went to
good.
Spain.
So good. The food was amazing.
Do you guys make it there in Calgary?
Yeah. And I like getting it like when it comes in pictures. If you're out with friends or something, it's always fun.
Yes, it's an easy
and
one.
Delicious.
We have a bunch of people over. It's like Aaron must like sangria, no?
He doesn't like wine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if it's like really sugary, but
so gross. Number 3 for me, my wife and I got into this at the end of last summer, the end of August, and that's a dark and stormy.
Okay.
What's
that?
Yeah, so it is dark rum with like actual ginger beer. So like a Krabby's.
Okay.
It's a thin slice of freshly shaved, well, not really shaved, it's cut, but very thin ginger root that's in there.
Okay.
A lime, and I'm forgetting 1 or 2 other minor, like maybe, I don't think there's a syrup that's in there. But anyway, it is absolutely phenomenal because right before my wife, we found out that she was pregnant. We decided like, okay, we're going to have a weekly date night in. And it'll be on Sunday nights, and we'll put, our daughter to bed, and then we'll have, a few hours together, and we'll make cocktails, and we'll have an appetizer. So me, like I was in charge of the cocktails, she's in charge of the appetizers. And the first night, and we try to match them, pair them, right? So the first night we did this, we had dark and stormies, and we paired it. She made her own homemade gyoza, so the Japanese dumplings. Absolutely phenomenal. Can't wait to do it again.
Your drinks are so classy and professional. Mine are like trailer park, but I don't care. I'm owning it.
I don't know about that. Although the next 2 they take work. So okay, let's.
Okay, my next 2 are very trailer park. So
what do you got?
My number 2 is a rum and Coke. I like rum and diet because of it's already sugary, so it just like balances it out. If it's, I don't know, I just feel like it's grosser with regular Coke, but yeah, I just like Captain Morgan and a nice Coke Zero. I remember one of the best nights I ever had at your house. I don't know where you were. You were somewhere gone. And I was there. Yeah.
Like Ottawa?
At like your house in Brandon.
In Brandon, okay.
Yeah. You were gone, and I was in the basement, and I was watching a Leafs game, and I think it was the playoffs. And I was by myself, and your mom brought me down like a big thing of rum and a bottle of Coke. It was the best thing ever. If like my kids ever have their friends over as adults, I'm going to do the exact same thing because it was just amazing. And I sat there and mixed myself some rum and Cokes all night long, and it was amazing. And I even think the Leafs lost, and I didn't even care. But yeah, your mom likes the rum and Cokes, so I think they always have some on hand.
Rye. She's more of a rye woman, so she's probably, I hate this rum stuff, so I'll just give it to.
Yeah. There you go.
You put some lime, some fresh lime in there, and you have a Cuba Libre. And a highball glass of
that's too classy.
Ice. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I drink it in a mug.
Doesn't matter. Number 2, I love this one. Mint juleps.
Yeah, with your drinks.
I
feel like you're just making them up at this point.
No.
What is a julep?
To julep the mint is to basically muddle it with a little bit of sugar, and then it creates what's called like a julep. It's kind of like a gummy thing, and it stays at the bottom of your glass, but it releases all the flavor of the mint, so you kind of get the best of both worlds. You don't have to pick out like mint leaves all the time, and you typically this is the drink at the Kentucky Derby because you use Kentucky bourbon with it. So it's bourbon, mint, and then just on top of like crushed ice. So you take like your blender and crush ice like you'd have a snow cone, and then you have a sprig of mint that you put in. But the key is you have to let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes to kind of get all the flavorings. Otherwise, you're just going to taste straight bourbon, which is fine by me, but you want that julep flavor to come through. So love them.
Yeah, when I mix a drink, I'm going to drink it right away, but cool if you want to wait 5 minutes. Sounds good. Okay, my number one is not an alcoholic drink. It has to be a Coke Zero fountain pop. And if
This
you
is
know,
the big
you know.
gulp. Okay.
Oh my gosh. And it has to be fountain. There's something different about fountain pops, but it's the most refreshing.
It's because it's just
McDonald's.
it's just syrup.
No, it's in the bottle. It's way more like dense with syrup, I think, than in the fountain.
Oh,
I think
maybe
it's like
maybe they cheap
more
out.
watery.
Yeah.
And it's just like the right amount of refreshing. And at McDonald's, they have like their dollar drinks and stuff. And when I was like when you're talking about, Aaron would get me those all the time because it was like, oh, it tasted so good. Oh, amazing. To julep.
My
Coke to julep.
my number one is one I've only had a couple times. We discovered it last year, and I don't even know if it has like an actual name. So where we live here in the east side of Hamilton, Stony Creek, just going into the Niagara, we live in like a little town called Winona, right on the edge of the city of Niagara, or city of Hamilton rather, and it's known for its peaches. Really, really good peaches. They have this huge peach festival here every year where literally thousands of people from across the region come to this little teeny tiny hamlet that has less than a couple hundred people. And it's weird because you have kiosks of like people like peddling their wares, like people that you would think that would be there selling like their homemade jewelry or like, you know, kind of farmers market type people. But then you have like RBC, law firms, like CPR, Canadian National Railway. Like, I don't know why they have kiosks at the Peach Festival, but nonetheless they're there. Yeah. And on top of that, they have a whole midway. They have like a giant fair. Like, it's a huge to-do. And so my wife and I, we were having a friend couple over and said, okay, it's the end of August. We're not from this area, but everyone always talks about the peaches. So let's do like a peach kind of theme, right? So like I smoked a pork tenderloin on peach wood. We had grilled peaches with ice cream for dessert. There was something else we did with peaches, but the cocktail we made is called a bourbon peach smash. So basically what you do is you take peach, you muddle it, so you get all that peach juice. You get a little bit of the flesh, not too much because it's not supposed to be like a smoothie. You mix it in with mint. Again, there's that mint julep coming through with bourbon and so a couple weeks later, the friend couple we had over, they just got married. They just got back from Europe, and he wants to host every year a Labor Day like barbecue get together. So he's like, come on over to my in-laws. My in-laws are going to host it. Eventually went by our own place. I'll do it. So you guys are invited too. We said, great, because they're in Niagara Falls, which is only like maybe an hour away. So I said to him, like, hey, do you need us to bring anything? And he said, just bring yourselves or whatever. And so I thought, okay, well, whatever. We'll bring like a bottle of wine or something like that. And then a couple hours later, he messaged me. He says, hey, do you think you can make that bourbon peach smash drink? And I said, yeah, not a problem. So I bought all the things to make it. And people just kept coming into the kitchen when I was making it. I was in the kitchen literally for 3 hours straight because it's a lot of work making this cocktail for everyone, and I left, and that was my time at the party, was just making this cocktail. That was it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound fun.
Listen, it's a labor of love, and it was Labor Day.
Okay, well, you'll have to make it for me. It sounds gross to me, but I'll try it.
No, you would love it. You would love it. Yeah, come on down. Come on down at Labor Day, and we'll because we have to go to Quebec City anyway. So
right. There you go. Well, if that doesn't teach you a little bit more about Scott and I, Gordon Ramsay and Trailer Park Boys, I don't know what will. So that is our top 10.
Do you know what the drink from Trailer Park Boys is called?
Big gulp.
Swish.
Okay. I feel like I would like that.
I feel like that might be right up your alley.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give
me one of those swishes.
You're like the Julian in our organization going around with the what's he got? Just rye and Coke, right? That's his thing. Yours would be rum. Yeah,
exactly. Well, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Stinking Albatross Podcast. Make sure that you follow us, you like us, you send us a comment, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you know when a new podcast episode comes out. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Bye for now.